There's a sequence, there's a code, there's a combination. And when you get the right combination, it unlocks everything for us. What's happening? All good?
All good. How about you?
It's hot. I think we were trading hot stories before we went live.
Yeah, they used to call it hot land, and they got away from that because it was a negative connotation. But 101 here yesterday, and probably about 100 again today. So
yeah, It definitely hot Atlanta, that's for sure. And what are we at today? I think we're going to be around the same. Finally got home yesterday. Been on the road for 10 days, and so we're leaving the airport, and the little thermometer on the truck. It said 99 about the time we got home. I was like, yeesh.
Was it cooler in Orlando than it is where you're at?
No.
Okay.
It's different, right? Like here, it's
Dry.
not as humid.
Yeah. So I just got back from Mexico. I should go back there. It was 85, 89, for a high. So I could go back there and stay cooler than it was here. So
yeah, for sure.
About that.
I was in. I got into, get in the sauna. Anywhere I go that has a sauna, I'm there. And I was sitting in the sauna in Orlando, and I was like, there's nobody else in here. There's nobody in the steam room next to me. The gym's full. And I'm like, people are like, why are you going in there? Why don't you just walk outside? It's like being in a sauna.
Yeah, pretty close.
Oh, well, appreciate you guys tuning in. I've got my man, Mr. Steve Freeman from south side of hot Atlanta in with us. And, it's Steve and I were chatting before we hit live, and we were talking about, his background and longevity in this industry. And so Steve, I don't know the statistic, but, percentage of licensed agents that have been in the business less than 5 years.
I don't know either. I know that the statistic is 84% drop out in the first 2 years.
Right.
So, I can tell you that it's funny. Lori and I were just talking about this the other day, that I look around, and when I first started in 1994, I can barely find people that are still in the business that were there when I started.
Right.
My mom, when I started with her, she's retired. There's a few, but not many.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to watch. So, but it seems to be that there's a big amount of people that are between 15 and 20. It seems to be that those people that came in that time period hung in pretty strong.
Well, I think it goes back when you could ride multiple markets, and you understand, how to find the opportunity, how to not only survive. I think it's more than survival. I think it's thriving in those opportunities, in those markets, wherever the opportunity is. So like for us, getting into 7, 8, 9 timeframe, short sales became a thing, and we dominated in short sales.
Right.
And, at that time, we also, I really got dialed in with a couple key clients. And one of them was a new home builder.
Yeah.
And really going deep with that relationship. And I'm not saying, you need to latch onto a home builder going forward. I'm just saying you got to find where the opportunity is, because there's an opportunity in any market. And, you've been in the industry, you got licensed back when?
1994.
Yeah. So think about that. Talk us through history. I think that's important for people to understand, how things repeat themselves and how to navigate through, because it's an astronomical percentage of agents that have been in the business less than 5 years. That, that's the question I ask in most of the rooms, and kind of going through is like, hey, how many of you been in 5 years or less? And that's the biggest number of hands go up.
Right.
And then, I'm talking, then I ask, hey, who rode through 7, 8, 9, 10 into 11? And very few have,
Right.
but those that raise their hands, I'm like, yeah, what's about to happen.
Yeah. And so, I just turned 52 last week too. I grew up with this too. My mom started selling in 77, so at 7 years old, she drug us everywhere. We went with her. My dad was a builder licensee. So I feel like that, even though I never was licensed, I took the test and never opened the book only because that's all we ever heard. So,
Right.
I can remember even back, dad was building, mom was selling, in the 80s, and the interest rates were through the roof, 18%. My mom did well just because she didn't know any better. She thought
Right.
that's how it was supposed to be. Um, and I think that's where we're about to get now. I think that, and look, there's some very smart people out here that are telling you to be cautious of the shift. And what I was just telling you before this is what's happening right now is it's not really necessarily a shift in the market, more or less, because think about how many thousands of homes still have to come on the market to shift it to be a buyer market. I mean, it's an astronomical number that's going to have
Mhm.
to hit the market. It's a shift of the rate, and it's a shift of your buyer pool that's available. But people are still going to be buying. People are still going to be selling. I told you when we started, I started selling in double digits. You
Mhm.
know, I posted on Facebook the other day. Don't forget that if you're complaining about 6%, if you're renting, you're paying 100%. And
Yeah.
I told one of my clients the other day, the average rent rate in Atlanta right now is $2,000. That's $24,000 a year. So if you're worried about buying a house and losing money, are you worried about losing over $24,000?
Right.
Because I mean that's what you're paying in 1 year of rent on average. If it's 3,000, 36,000. So you gotta kind of start having the right lingo to say to people to ease the fear, because the media's after them, social media's after them. Lori gets to hear me bitch about this every night. I saw an article the other day that said foreclosures are up 700%. Well, no duh. We had a moratorium for 2 years. If seven houses go up for foreclosure, guess what that is? That's
Yeah.
a 700% increase. And all they did was a fear mongrel post. You know,
100%.
so just be careful what you read. Be careful what you say too. By the way,
Right.
'cause what you say people hear. And you guys stay as positive as you can. This, I believe we're headed for a plateau of prices. I don't believe we're going to be able to push them like we were. And I actually, John, back you and I talked back in October, and we had this very conversation. I actually listened to it not long ago. That we were going to experience this growth, and then we're going to start hitting a plateau, and
100%.
we're just about there.
Yeah. Heading into 20, coming out of 19, pre-foreclosures were up more than they had been in a long time. And so think about that, right? And it just, into 20 through most of 21, it was just a pause. So the situation didn't change. It was still there. So it's just a bubbling up effect. And no matter what, it's just one of those things that it's just part of the process, and you just have to understand that didn't go away. They're still there. So the motivation, people are coming out, and the uncertainty, and what we have to remember, and we have to be the guiding principle, the guiding force of this, is that fear is something in the future that has never happened. And so are you going to allow yourself to be consumed by the clickbait, or are you going to really focus on the only things within your control? And
I think everybody's walking around with PTSD from '08 through 10. I mean, whether you were in this business or you were living it, I think we're all walking around with that, and
yeah,
that's what you're leading with. But if you go back in time and look before then, I mean, that's like a one time event.
it is. And our my very dear friend Blake Sloan, his morning mindset post this morning is, fear is nothing but living in the future and betting against yourself. Live in the present now and control the controllable. And I've been sharing his mantra of what they do and they focus on a daily basis. And I've shared this with you multiple times. I shared it with the kitchen table. Blake and I were sitting in Key West at the end of 20, because in 20, the only place you could really go to was Florida, so we went to Key West. Why not?
Yeah.
And so we were sitting there, just killing a little time before we flew out. And I looked over and I said, "Hey man, what's been the number one driver within your organization?" Now, and this is 20, mind you, right? When fear was even running more rampant.
Right.
And he said, he didn't even hesitate. He said, the number one thing that we focused on is focusing on the things that we can control and how we win every day. And I was like, oh, tell me more. And he goes, so every morning before 9 o'clock, our team, everybody on the team has to declare what is the one thing within their control, that they're going to commit to accomplishing today to help them move their business forward with new business. And you think about it in this industry, Steve, it's not very many things, right? It's only a handful of things. It's what are you doing around your lead gen? What are you doing around engagement? What are you doing around conversations? What are you doing around setting appointments? Because that's really the only things in this industry that's within your control. If I say, hey, Steve, I'm going to get a listing today, that's not in my control, because what if the seller's kiddos get sick and they have to reschedule? So now I just said, hey, well, my thing to win today within my control is I'm going to take a listing. Well, it's like, I got rescheduled on you. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
And that was like the big aha and shift. And I know I've shared that story with a lot of people. And, it's been one of the things that if they have implemented that into their business, into their life, I mean, that's where you're seeing people separate themselves, those that are taking action on a daily basis within their control to move their business forward, or they're getting paralyzed by, what's going on around them, or the noise that's going on around them.
Right. And, that's one thing that we do in our weekly team meeting is, we talk about, what dialogue can we have with people? How do we stay positive? How do I keep them on a positive track? Before we were dealing with that buyer fatigue, they'd make 20 offers and then all of a sudden they didn't want to even make an offer anymore. They were tired. So how do we circumvent that? So yeah, it's all about your mindset. I like that one thing that you can control. I'll tell you the one thing that you can control too is your follow-up. That was one thing. Just you got to stay with people, because if not, they're just going to forget you. Especially if you don't have that relationship with them.
100%.
If you've just met them and you've started the process, you've got the follow-up is imperative.
It's so key. We had just coming out of Orlando shareholders, we had Coach Burt come in, do a special session on Tuesday evening, and he it was all about the $1 million follow-up, and really understanding that the follow-up overlay it's an overlay of the whole process, and it's not a follow-up it's a follow-up to move them to make a decision to either tell you to kick rocks, a decision to, hey, we're going to rent for 12 months, a decision to, yes, we're ready to move forward, a decision to, no, we're going to stay put in the home. Like, where are we going to go? We're not going to go. We're just going to stay committed here. But our job is to move them to a decision, and decision of what's going to happen in the future. And it's never not letting them go. And we talk, Coach bases a lot of, that philosophy around the law of diffusion, to where, there's only about 16 to 17% of the people that will do something with you in the first, the first 3 to 5 interactions with you. Yeah. And then there's about 34% that need about 7 to 10 interactions with you. And then there's another 34% that need 15 to 20 interactions. And then there's a percentage of the market that will never do anything.
And that's the ones you just have to say next.
100%. 100%.
And I'm probably almost to a fault of saying next. I'm not going to sit here and I told somebody the other day, I can get in a 3-point stance and hit this door so many times, I'll eventually knock it down. But how smart is that?
Yeah. It's funny you say that. I got an outline right here. It's Frank Kern's outline on, it just talks about, hey, I'm 100% certain I can help you and would love to have you as a client. What questions can I answer? If they don't want it, okay, cool. Anything else I can help you with? But I wrote down here, the magic word. He goes, your magic word is next. Yeah. The magic word is next.
It is. And I mean, it is. By far, you got to know when, and Mark, my buyer agent this week, he's showing this guy, and you and I actually talked about it, like 50 something houses. And it's almost like a failure to commit. The guy's been under contract twice and backed out twice. And I told him, I said, man, this might be that time where it's just a next, and it's a high end buyer too, but it just might be the next,
What are your thoughts? So I had the opportunity on Friday in Orlando. I went in early for our good friend Mike Collier had him and his co-founder kind of the Bulletproof Agent, Jennifer Wade. They had one of their first Bulletproof events on Friday, and had the opportunity to come in and speak to that room. And we had Bobby D and Gil Ramos there, but Bobby presented as well, and he shared kind of one of the mantras with his business partner Gil Ramos around this is the summer of skill.
Yeah,
and you and I talked about it, is that because of the new, the agents that have been in the market, if they have not committed to developing the skill set that they need to be a true expert advisor, they're going to be in trouble. I'm going to give you an analogy here in a minute, but I want that was shared with me just a couple of days ago. But what is your take around that kind of mantra, that theme, the summer of skill?
Yeah, so that's what we've actually been talking about too. Is it's not going to be business as normal. You got to come up with the way that you can, and that's what I tell people. I'm the AAA agent. I'm here to advise you. I'm here to assist you, and I'm here to be your advocate when it's time, right? But in that advising stage, and I told you this, I'm doing an FHA assumable purchase right now. I asked the listing agent what kind of loan that they had on their house, which was FHA, and I proposed to that person that my buyer is also my seller, and they are making a pretty big windfall out of the sale of their house. And I said, is this amount enough to pay off the equity that they're looking to gain? So now my client is about to get a 3.25% interest rate on the remainder of that loan versus going out and getting a 6%. That's skill, because not many people even know that the FHA is assumable, and not many people are going to even ask that question of what kind of loan do they have, and most of them aren't putting it on I think that in some MLSs there might be that. I don't know if there is or isn't. If not, it will be added soon, I'm sure, because this is what took place in the 70s and 80s when those interest rates were so high. You'd have balloon notes, you'd have owner financing, because owner financing was still less, same thing. Because let me just assure you that an owner who can make 5% is a lot more than what they're making in their banks.
Yeah.
With no risk.
Right.
So they'll take that on. If they go to 8%, I'm telling you, they'll be happy to make 6-7%. So yeah, that's one, and the other one, like we were talking about the other day, a friend of mine, Sean Rawls, actually said it better than I did. He said, marry the house and date the rate. What I was saying the other day was, if you got a rate today at 6%, and if they go to where they're projected to 8-9%, don't you feel like that you won, in December, what you got today?
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, if the rates drop, you can always refinance. So you're really in a win-win, and the prices aren't coming down. They're not coming down. They're coming down from this is where they're coming down. We will not be able to push them up like we did.
Right.
That's what's dropping.
Right.
The push is what's dropping, not the actual price.
Yeah, it blows me away. 12 months ago we sold the house in Texas, and we set the mark in the neighborhood at the time, and it sold. I was like laughable for what it sold for. I was like, there's no way in hell it should have sold for that.
Right.
And then I'm still on the notifications in the neighborhood and seeing what things are selling for or have sold for and been priced. It's like they come on, like double of what we paid for that house 5 years ago, 6 years ago now.
So, but double. When you sold that house for more than what you did, all you did was reset the floor.
Mm-hmm.
So that means that the next person that came in behind you in that market could just turn around and push it again up higher than what you did.
They did.
Now, but you're going to see that I just did it. The highest sales price in the neighborhood was $396. We sold for $410. So we're still there, and we appraised. We're not. That's what I'm saying. Like, we're not at that gloom and doom yet. By the way, that house that was 3 weeks ago, and we had, I think, 5 or 6 offers on it. I listed one last week. Same thing, had 5 or 6 offers. So I mean, the buyer pool is still there.
Right.
Still there. And this is one thing I've said too, and I'll be happy to talk about this at kitchen table. I believe that you're going to see a little bit of a backfire. I believe that the inventory is actually going to drop even more because I think that people aren't going to want to trade their 3% for 6%. I believe that builders are going to get scared of the interest rates and actually slow their building down. And then guess who doesn't care about interest rates? Cash buyers and these investor buyers that are in the marketplace. So Steve, think you're actually going to see the inventory kind of even slip. It's going to peak up right now just naturally. This is the end of the school year, so people naturally put it on. You've got a few people that are scared that they're going to miss the market, so they put it on there. But I'm telling you, it's a little bitty tiny bump, and I think that you're going to see it actually drop. That's what I believe.
Yeah. And back to kind of the, the summer of skill and developing the skill sets necessary. I think for the number one thing that you have to develop the skill set is what does it mean to be a true authority and an expert on the listing side of the business?
Yeah.
This is where you will gain the momentum and the mind share that we need in order to be able to sustain any market. And when you have a brand and you're tied into the community and you have that authority, the market can do whatever the hell the market's going to do. And it doesn't matter if you position yourself as the authority, the go-to, the person they trust. I honestly believe no matter what happens, moving, my thoughts. I think we've got a few great years ahead. It's going to get interesting towards the end of the decade, and then into the 30s, all bets off.
I think so too.
And so no matter what, even what happens then, it's still going to come down to a decision of trust.
Mm-hmm.
And does the marketplace trust you?
Right.
What are you doing to build your brand and develop trust? And it has to be built through the listing side. And the reason that agents tend to want to work with buyers, because all you got to do is make a friend on the buy side. The listing side, you have to be skilled.
That's
and
correct.
So if you're like, okay, anything that's a skill can be developed, you have to commit to developing the skill sets necessary to really become the best expert advisor that you possibly can on the listing side of the business, and like grow your inventory.
And I mean, the problem's been, and I mean, I experience this all the time. Like I sell myself out of business every 2 weeks. I mean, like I'll take on 4 listings next week and they'll be gone in a week and a half. So I think that when we talk about the skill set, the people who have been in this business for the past 2 or 3 years, who've probably done extremely well, have not had to do a whole lot to learn how to sell a house.
No,
they're going to have to go back and learn what it takes to really market, to really promote. Because, right now sellers are easy, but let me assure you, when stuff is not selling, they are not easy.
They're not easy.
They're calling you every single day. The people who say they don't like buyers are going to turn into where they love them, because buyers won't complain like a seller will, because the seller's going to call you every day and ask you why.
Yeah.
And what are you doing? What's going on?
But if you don't have a process, Steve, and I think you would agree to this, if you don't have a process around how you're going to position and sell their home for the most amount of money in any given market to help them accomplish their goals, and it comes down to understanding what is the number one client complaint. What is the number one complaint? The number one complaint has always been communication.
Right.
And a lot of agents have been rewarded for bad behavior on a lack of communication, not only to their clients, but to their team and to the other agents in the marketplace, to their community. They've been rewarded with that bad behavior. Those days, will not.
They will come to a screeching halt.
Yeah.
That will. Because I do believe that we will probably start seeing longer days on market. Which that's why I'm saying like if you position yourself of I sell my houses in 10 days or less, you better be careful.
Yeah,
because that's not going to last.
I had the opportunity to have kind of we were going to have lunch, but our schedules didn't allow it to work. So we just met, pre-lunch. Gentleman that I had the opportunity to work with, good friend, Don Yoakum. Don's up in the Northwest, business partners with Tom Daves. And, he shared this analogy that really I think this is really helpful for a lot of agents out there, is that we all know, the three pigs and the big bad wolf. And he said, what we're going to see is that, newer agents coming into the industry, or new agents, or agents that do 5 to 6 deals a year, are essentially building their business out of straw.
Yeah.
And then you got the next segment of agents that, could do 6 to 12 homes a year, 15 homes a year, and they're content. They're building their house out of wood.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the agents that are doing 25, 30 plus, building a team, building an organization, running it like a business. And they're building out of brick.
Yeah.
And so just hearing the theme from Gil and Bobby with the Alliance and what they're doing in Orlando of the Summer of Skill, to hearing Don share that analogy of, what are you building? Are you building straw? Are you building wood? Or are you committed to, as we know, laying one brick perfectly every day? Are you building your home out of brick? And when I came back to work back in Oklahoma, when I left California for my with my buddies, the name of the company was OTR, On the Rock Construction. Now, it like definitely not a Christian organization, I can tell you that. So,
Yeah.
but the verse in Matthews talks about, you build your house on sand, or you build your house on a solid foundation.
Yeah.
And I think for everybody listening to this, and everybody that we can, as leaders and as coaches, we need to be able to amplify this message, is that we have to make sure we're building a foundation not on sand. We're building it on solid rock. And we're building this foundation, we're building this infrastructure, we're building this organization out of brick.
Right. And it's funny, like I was thinking, it's funny you even mentioned that, because I was thinking it's just yesterday. I was like, teach a man to fish, and he can feed himself. And that I swear to you, I was thinking that in my team meeting going into it, that, that was one of the things that, hey, look, if we learn to fish, we can always feed ourselves. And I think we have. I know we have.
100%.
I'll say this, you've seen my video. I mean, I used to do an entire walkthrough video in the house, hey, welcome, we're here now, blah, 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 come see us. We weren't able to do that over this past year or so, just because of the timing. The houses sell so fast, we couldn't get in there and even edit the video before we could do it. So we started doing a little bit different 3D videos, just to where we could walk through it really quick and fast.
Yeah.
And we could get that up. But I'm telling you, they're going to have to learn skills. They're going to have to learn how to go back and market these houses, because they're not just going to put a sign in the yard, put it in MLS, and be gone in 5 or 6 days with 10 offers.
Right. And my belief, I believe that, everybody needs to be building a marketing agency that just happens to do whatever, right? So happens to sell real estate. We happen to focus on sellers.
Right.
We happen to, recruit agents. We happen to sell shaved ice. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And you have to be understanding that it's not the best agent that wins. And this, because I mean, I'll put anybody up against your skill set as a real estate professional, but it's not the best agent that wins. It's the best marketer.
It is. And so that's, I've hired a, Katharina, who's my head of marketing, and she's doing phenomenal stuff with the branding now,
Mm-hmm.
that's branding us to where we're a top tier in the company or the area. She's bracketing out the reviews that we get and posting those, so that they look, so it doesn't look exactly like just a review somewhere.
Right.
Because I've always said, I mean, I've lived here my whole life. I've been doing this almost 30 years. I'd say sometimes I get lost in the commonality, because I'm just here. I've been here.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's the next new bright, shiny thing that all of a sudden grabs somebody's attention. And I have to make sure that I stay as that bright, shiny object. That's a challenge.
Right.
That is a challenge, because you got to kind of almost got to reinvent yourself a little bit to stay on the edge every now. You got to stay within your same brand and who you are, but you got to kind of add a little bit to it every now and then, just to sort of stand back out.
Yeah, on the marketing side, the first question really comes down to is, who's our person?
Yes.
And so thinking about this as the market shifts, that's the question, right? Who's my person now? Where's the opportunity? What are they doing? And then if you go through that avatar process, you have to ask yourself, okay, well, if this is my opportunity, this is my person, this is my avatar, this is my ideal client, whatever you want, how you understand it to be. What are their wants? What are their desires? What are their dreams? What are their struggles? What's keeping them up at night?
Right.
And then you start to tailor your conversation and your message and your offer to that person to help them solve their problem. And what we have to understand, and this goes back to what you said about follow-up, is that people move 3 times faster towards solving their pain, than they are to opportunity. So this is just a great reminder in our follow-ups and our conversations and our marketing and our message, is that we have to speak to the pain.
Right.
People are not moved by opportunity.
Right.
Us as business owners, we have to look for the opportunity, but we have to help people solve problems. We have to help them ease their pain. So those are the things, like what you're saying from the marketing side of things, is like, okay, well, here's our opportunities.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the short sale days.
Change is difficult. You've heard me say this before. Change is difficult for everybody, right? It doesn't matter what it is. The only people in life that beg and scream for change is a dirty, wet baby. Other than that, people will resist it on all levels. There's a few of us that don't, that take it on, but the vast majority are like that. So yeah, I mean, what is it? And it's not always the highest sales price. It's not always the fastest sale. It is asking those questions that peel the onion back, right?
Yeah.
Because it's there. You just might, and it's not always what we think it is. We go in there, I think, as realtors a lot and say, oh, they just want the highest price, the fastest sale, and whatever. That's not always the case.
It's not what they want. You got to ask.
Yeah. I mean, but I think as realtors, we've been programmed to think that way, and that's 90% of what I see agents marketing to is that, but it's not. I mean, it is, there are pain points that are up underneath there. It might be a family change. It might dynamics. It might be, I mean, you just never know unless you ask.
Yeah, I think one, you want to ask. I think two, you can do your research. What's Google search? What's going on? And going into the pandemic, I think the keyword search for sell my home fast was up astronomically. Right. So looking at knowing kind of what people are really searching for, but you have to ask in your conversations. I mean, you can give a little bit of ammo, kind of what's going on, and and we talked about this at kitchen table. It's like, if you're kind of confused, and the question was, well, what are they? I'm like, I don't know. Ask them. Like, send a survey to your database and ask them, hey, what's the one thing that's keeping you up at night? What's the one thing that you're most concerned about moving into the rest of the year as a homeowner? What's the one thing that you're most concerned about moving into the second half of the year as a new home buyer, as a home buyer? Ask them. Just ask.
And you're going to be, we did it. We just ran it. And man, it was amazing at what we got back.
Mm-hmm.
Because
what did you see? What was kind of the theme? What was kind of the message?
I think a lot of it is that the people who are wanting to move are wanting to move closer to family.
Mm-hmm.
That's the number one driver that we've seen, that people who say that they might sell is people who are trying to get closer to family, which kind of comes into my perfect avatar of that. Typically I'm at a second to third move person. I'm not really in that any longer in that first time home buyer, just me. I'm more that move up, move down. Mm-hmm. And so it's very interesting. And that's where we focused, and that's been my price range I've been focused on. And that was the number one thing, was moving closer to family.
And I would tell everybody, I ran into our longtime friend Curtis Finn with RedX at the shareholders event, and he, I know they're always on the cutting edge of what they're doing, and he made ran into each other, big hug. We talked for a little bit, and he's like, "Hey, I need you to, I want to walk you through all the stuff that we're doing, because like if you guys are listening to this, you're hearing like, hey, move up, kind of circle prospecting. You need data. You need data. And what I would tell you right now, always bet on the jockey.
Yeah.
And so we've always bet on the jockey. And the jockey for us on data has always been Mark and Curtis with RedX.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, if you're listening to this and you're like, man, what's your data solution? What data? If you don't have data, you have to get data. There is nobody better. Go get a call, reach out to the sales team at RedX. Don't buy it right off their site. Reach out to them and say, hey, I listened to Kitchens and Steve on the Coach Code podcast, and they said I need a data solution, and then I need to talk to Curtis.
Yeah.
And so tell them that you heard this message on the podcast. They will take care of you. They are
good services out there too. Not to do. I mean, I've used Vulcan. I've used RedX. I prefer RedX over the Vulcan. That's just my choice. But that you're dead on. I think our data that we got was just spot on.
Yep.
Very, very few bad numbers. The circle prospecting, the ability to go directly into a neighborhood that so we'd have somebody that called and said, I want to live in, XYZ neighborhood. We'd be able to just zero in right on into it, and that I got, we have people that do that. So, and that's the ability to be able to just directly go after data.
Yeah, you got to have it. So when we built out the call center in Dallas, in North Dallas, and really building out and understanding, the key component when it comes to the prospecting, the outbound game, we used to always just default, and us running an organization, I would just default back to effort and skill.
Mm-hmm.
That would be my default pillars would be, okay, hey, are you putting in the effort that it takes in order, how many conversations do you have to have in order to be able to set an appointment and then that appointment to meet with you and then agree to do business with you? What is that number? How many conversations? And then what is your skill set? Are you able to articulate your value proposition? Are you able to, ask, talk to people on the phone and being able to get them to agree to want to meet with you because you have the skill set to do that.
Yeah.
And so that's what we used to always measure. But what we found when you're running 12 ISAs in a small call center, it's more than just effort and skill. It comes down to tools and data.
Right.
And so what are the tools that you're using to be able to engage that leads to the ability to have a conversation? And then what's your data? What's the data solution for you? So you got to measure, you got to look at all four of those components. And for me, hands down, and I'm telling all of you guys listening in, if you do not at least give RedX a shot, you're doing yourself and your business and your future a disservice. You guys got to have data. And
I'm gonna tell you what, like when I mentor some of through my EXP obligation, one of the first things I tell them, man, is know your numbers. I mean, I don't care if you're as green as you can be. If you know your numbers, you're gonna excel, and people will accept you because they believe that now you have a pulse. You know the pulse of the market.
Yeah.
Like for example, yesterday I went to my listing appointment yesterday. I said, you're competing with 15 other homes in the entire county in this price. 15.
Yeah.
I said, and this is a 120,000 person county. That's not very much, and so that's what I'm telling you. So we're still able to leverage the fact that there's very little inventory.
Yeah.
Skill set. It's all. I love Gil. It's exactly right. I'm probably going to steal his thunder, and run with that a little bit. But it's knowing if you know your numbers, you're golden.
Yeah. You are. And I mean, amateurs don't, pros do. And coach shared kind of the story, you think about it, there's football games played on Friday nights. There's football games played on Saturday, but the pros play on Sunday. So what are you doing to be able to play at that level? And I think that's it has to become that level of commitment. However, on the same, not a however, I'm going to give an and not only developing that skill set and thinking about the, as you were talking earlier, I was like, and you ask yourself this question all the time, right? So if who do I have to become? If I'm going to grow and dominate and take over a market, the question then becomes who do I have to become in order for this to become inevitable?
Right.
And it's the whole kind of concept around inevitability thinking.
Well, that's like, all right, so go back to coach. Friday, what you do on Fridays is going to determine whether you get to play on Saturdays.
Mm-hmm.
What you do on Saturdays is going to determine whether you ever get to play on Sunday. And if you're not doing the right things, then you're not ever going to take over and play on Sunday.
Right.
So that there you go, right there, talking about what do you have to do to be a market. It's probably not going to happen overnight, but you better go in there and do the things that you have to do to move from Friday night play to Sunday night play.
And what that means to get there. And I know we keep referencing coach, but this was a big thing that he kind of challenged everybody heading into the new year. And he was like, this is going to be the year of sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
And what are you willing to sacrifice in your health, your wealth, and your relationship so that you can take those three buckets, which is the happiness triad. What do you have to sacrifice to be able to become world-class in your health? What do you have to sacrifice to become world-class in your business? What do you have to sacrifice to become world-class in your relationships? And it's just a great mantra. Who do I have to become? What do I have to sacrifice? And a lot of people won't think through it that way. They just stay in their day-to-day, head in the sand, or what's going on.
I had to personally, I had to sacrifice a relationship, not personally, but business wise.
Mm-hmm.
I had to sacrifice a business relationship that I've had for 5-6 years to move forward.
Sure.
It's probably one of the hardest things I've done in a long time.
Yeah.
But right people, right order. I was able to go back and do the exact things that we talked about doing. And now I'm in a much better place today than I've been in probably 3 or 4 years.
Well, it freed your thinking up to be able to expand.
Yeah. But it was a hard thing to do, guys. I'm telling you, it was as difficult of a thing as I've ever gone through, really. But yes. Yeah. It was, I had blinders on, by the way. I had blinders on to myself.
And I think that comes into, you're trying to make decisions around people instead of making decisions around, the objective, decisions around the vision, and really looking at it with the people. I had, on this damn longest road trip I've been on, it was kicked off in New York, and had the opportunity for kind of a marketing session that we were able to be a part of. Times Square Today process. And, my good friend, Nick Nanton, it's kind of his project. It's been his project for a long time. And we were kind of talking, he was talking about the team that he's assembled, and he referenced the Bezos letters, and he said, only hire people that you admire.
Right.
And so for you guys listening in, knowing that you have to make some key hires and create leverage to be able to move forward, first step is you got to take current inventory of the team. And do you admire the people around you? If not, then you need to potentially free up their future so that they can go somewhere that they're admired. And it's such it sounds so simple. It's hard, right? Like you said, it was so damn hard, and it took you a long time. You knew the answer. It just took a long time to be able to execute.
I knew the answer for a year.
Yeah.
I think you and I talked about it for a year.
Yeah.
It just finally came to a point to where, I just did it.
Yeah.
And I knew I needed to do it, and I finally just did what I needed to do. So.
Do you find too that people, if you're kind of frustrated or not happy with them and their role, and, you go back through the basics. Hey, okay, well, let's really nail the agreement. Hey, we got the agreement of success. You can either hit it or not. There's still a heavy, factor that we have to weigh on of who they are with their character and their core values, and are they alignment with us? And have you found, because, as you've built, down, solo. I mean, you've ran every which way possible in this industry. But when you find people that you're frustrated, do you tend to find that they're not happy with their situation as well?
Yeah, but and it's usually an undercurrent, and at the very end of the day, now this didn't happen this time, but I can tell you in the past, yes, it was almost a relief to that person
Mm,
when I had, and we've talked about this before. My job is to move people, not have people I'm trying like this, but to have them like this, right?
yes.
Um, and I've, I've had people that I thought were like that, but were like that, and then when we had the agreement to move a different direction, they the relief was not just for me, but it was as much for them because they just were frustrated too. Yes,
Yeah.
we both hit it well. We both kind of knew it, but when we stepped up to the plate and said, "Hey, look, we need to move another direction." I'm just gonna. It's a friend of mine. He was doing as a managing broker. Just really wasn't working. Just wasn't his style.
Well, it goes back to what you just said,
Yeah.
earlier in the conversation, is that only babies want change, right?
Right. That's right. That's right. They're the only ones that scream for it.
Yeah.
So even if they're in the wrong position, they'll stay there just because what are they going to do next?
Mhm.
That's the inevitable, right? Is
Mhm.
where do I go? And
Yeah.
it's the comfort of being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah. It is.
I would say, John, back to this skill thing. The other thing is know your options for your mortgages. I think that you'll see ARMs come back into play. The only ones I would recommend probably 7 to 10. I think the other ones are dangerous. I think that's kind of got us in a little bit of trouble, 8 and 10. I think you'll see those start coming back into play.
I agree.
It'll ease things up for the consumer.
Yep.
I don't believe I know prices aren't coming down. People have real loans. They have real cash into these houses. They have real money. Um, Job market strong. Um, I wish our government would go after fixing the gas and the food instead of trying to mess with the interest rates. But that that's a different topic. Um, but yeah, I really believe that we're okay. We got to know how to navigate our way down the stream.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing, this is kind of what I've been sharing, with all of you and kitchen table crew and everything, is don't get fixated on playing defense.
Mm-mm.
Um, you know,
Oh, I'm in the offensive mode right now.
100%.
I'm 100% offensive.
100%. Yeah.
I don't think we're anything in defense right now. And
No.
if you're in defense, you got to change your mindset.
Quickly. Quickly.
The sellers are still in the driver's seat right now.
Yep.
They're
Quickly.
still in the driver's seat.
Play
And that's why I
offense.
said that. That's what I said earlier. Think about the thousands and thousands of houses that have to come onto the market at the same time to shift this away from being a seller market to a buyer market.
Mhm.
Thousands.
Yeah.
I mean, think about that.
Yeah.
So and there's plenty of buyers that are out there, plenty. So yeah, be on the offense. Both sides, by the way.
Right.
If you got a buyer, be offensive. Try to. I mean, I don't think we're in the big. Let's make a $20,000 low offer. We're still kicking those to the curb.
Yep.
We don't have to yet. We're not. So that's one thing I will say that the media is doing is they've now convinced the buyers a little bit that they can go in here and start making some offers, which they are, but they're not winning. They're not getting them.
Mm-mm.
So good luck.
Yes, sir.
Sellers are still in the driver's seat. They still are.
Yep. Agree. Awesome, brother. Well,
Okay.
I appreciate you jumping in. Definitely always a wealth of knowledge. I know you've been playing this game for so long. There's not a situation you haven't encountered. So it's
Don't say that, because I say if that happens, I'm quitting. I mean, like every day it's something new and different. I mean, I'm like, this. If I ever call you, or when I call Lori, I'm like, I got a good one for you.
Yeah.
That if I ever call somebody and say that, be ready.
Be ready.
Something's about to happen that it's never happened before.
Doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So, hey, and this is the other thing too, guys, real quick. Try to get in front of anybody that they're thinking about. If there's a chance they're being foreclosed on, get in front of them. I just helped somebody, John, they were about to get foreclosed on. That person, they were getting foreclosed. I was able to stop it. That person made $90 $500,000 in equity and
Mm,
was almost 2 weeks later would have been foreclosed on.
right.
So
There you
I'm telling you, these people still have equity there. Help them.
go. They have
You're
options.
not trying to make a living. You're trying to help them.
Yep.
And I'm telling it will save they'll be able to buy a house somewhere in the future, whatever, without having that foreclosure on there. Their credit's still going to be shot, but they got money. They could go pay rent for a year out of whatever they make.
100%. I mean, we're in the business of solving problems, and
Yeah,
you have to understand, money exchanges hands when you solve problems.
that's correct.
And if you're not solving if you're not getting money exchanged, you're not solving problems. The bigger the problem, the bigger the paycheck.
Correct.
So you've got to remember that. What problem am I helping them solve? What is their problem? How am I going to help it solve? And then that's how money exchanges hands.
If it was easy, they wouldn't need us.
That's right.
So, all right, look, hey, anybody out there, you're always welcome to contact me, call me, text me, whatever. I'm happy to have a 30-minute conversation anytime.
Anytime. What's the best way to connect with you?
I'd say text me we can pop it
Sure.
up.
Throw it in there.
Yeah, just text me, email me, call me. I don't care. I'm on everything, Messenger, WhatsApp, you name it. It's open. I'm gonna get you one way or the other. Oh, what's my new one now? Telegram. That's my newest one.
You got a Telegram?
Yeah, because one of my clients communicates only through Telegram. So
Gotcha. Cool.
what you gonna do?
All right, brother.
All right.
Appreciate you.
Thank you very much. See you soon.
All right. Later.